John Souttar has scored 2 goals for Scotland, both at Hampden. I was at both games. Thomas Muller has scored 4 goals against Scotland. 2 of them were at Hampden. I was at that game as well. A lot of German football and paraphernalia behind me tonight. That's all about Danny Röhl, the Rangers head coach, mentioning Thomas Muller in his press conference today, Friday. Last night, Thursday night, I also had a lot of German football and paraphernalia behind me, but it was because I was going to refer to Hayes, Val, Hamburg, SV Hamburg, playing against Bayern Munich. A lot of big games between those two. FC Bayern München, a lot of big games between those two in the kind of late 70s into the early 80s. They were consistently contesting the Bundesliga title. That was the only, I wasn't setting up because it was Thursday night and Celtic were playing against a German side at Parkhead. I've actually got a VfB shirt. I've actually got a VfB Stuttgart shirt there. So if I wanted to get right into that kind of attitude, I would have had that up behind me there. But I like to point that kind of thing out because it's actually relevant. I'm not being chippy here. I'm not having a cheap shot. It's relevant that Celtic were playing VfB last night, 2002, 2003. Martin O'Neill was a Celtic manager, and they play VfB Stuttgart. They play them in the UEFA Cup, which is now the Europa League, and the title goes right down to the last day of the season. Rugby Park last week, Celtic get a fantastically exciting win against Kilmarnock. They score deep into injury time, seconds of injury time left, and they score the winner, win the game by a single goal. They're absolutely delighted, whereas the last day of the 2002-2003 league season, they win 4-0 at Rugby Park, but they're devastated because Rangers have won 6-1 against Dunfermline. And our last game of the season at Ibrox, which means that we seal the league title on our way to winning a domestic treble. As Celtic go on to... Celtic had just played in a European final in Seville. They'd got to that final in Seville under Martin O'Neill, playing VfB Stuttgart. I don't know, it's just when you see the Wolves Arsenal game during the week there, you know, Arsenal are 2-0 up. They look like they're going to get it. You know, it's actually longer than fever pitch. The time between the time between them last being champions of England, when Nick Hornby, the author of Fever Pitch, his kind of book all about his life supporting Arsenal, which is really about a whole lot of different stuff, using the metaphor, the ongoing analogy, if you like, the vehicle of his love for Arsenal and football in general to explore all that kind of stuff. But it's 1971, Arsenal win the double, and he can remember it as a kid, but he don't win it again until 1989. And that seems a hell of a long time, and it's part of that whole thing about time, how time changes, it accelerates as you get older. And I feel the same way. It's now 22 years. It's longer than the course of Fever Pitch since Arsenal were champions of England, and yet it feels like it's just gone in like that. Not if you're an Arsenal supporter, not it won't have gone in that quickly, obviously. But 22 years, it's also the length of time since Celtic last won a post-group stage knockout game in Europe. Martin O'Neill was their manager the season after they got to the final in Seville, and it was 2-2. It was 2-2 between Arsenal and Wolves all night. Arsenal gave up a 2-goal lead. And who's their manager? Mikel Arteta, the guy who scored the goal that made it 6-1. He scored the penalty that made it 6-1 to Rangers. The final goal we scored in that season in 2002-2003, ensuring we would win the league on goal difference. So is he getting subliminally dragged back into, he can only win the league if it goes right into the last game of the season? Mikel Arteta, and it's the only way he knows how to do it. Where do we have that? Did we throw away any 2-goal leads? 2002, 2003, I can't really remember. I know about that horrific 2-each draw up at Dens Park where we missed 15 penalties, but we dropped to 2 points. There'll be coincidences going on there. We're going to Livingston this Sunday. Russell Martin was our manager the last time we went to Almondvale. It was the only league game Russell Martin won in his short time as Rangers manager. Russell Martin was in charge for 6 SPFL Premiership games at Rangers. He drew 4 of them. He lost 1. That was at home to Hearts. We played Hearts at home last week, and he only won 1, and that was away to Livingston, who were playing. So because we beat Livingston last week, does that mean we're going to reverse it again? We beat Hearts at Ibrox last Sunday. We're going to end up losing 2-1 to Livingston in the last seconds this Sunday. Who knows? But I think it's one of the most quite amazing things about the tightness of this league title race. The most amazing thing about it is Hearts. How Hearts, who haven't won the title in 66 years, are out in front still, just by a couple of points now, but they're still out in front, and they've made it super exciting for everybody concerned. But the amazing thing is what Rangers and Celtic have done to themselves over the course of this season. Russell Martin 6 league games in charge of Rangers, drew 4, lost 1, won 1. 7 points he picked up. 7 SPFL Premiership points he picked up. But then Celtic went and hired their own Russell Martin when they get Wilfried Nancy, who was in charge for 6 SPFL Premiership games, and he won 2 of them, but he lost the other 4. So he picked up 6 points. I find it quite incredible that if Rangers win the league by a point, do we have to thank Russell Martin? I don't know. It's just one of these things you need to kind of look into. How you doing, folks? This is your FAT. We're either doing what football does and following a great home win against the team that's top of the table with a calamitous away defeat to the team that's bottom of the table, or we're blowing this thing wide open by banging in many goals again in another big victory, which proves beyond all doubt that we are here, that Dan's the man, and that it is indeed on Rangers away at Livingston. Preview pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet tonight. It's been on. By the time you see this, it will have been on. I know Craig was hosting, but other than that, I don't know who's on with Craig, excuse me for that, but Gersnet will have been on at 9 o'clock on Friday night, as it always is, so it'll still be on the YouTube channel and all other good streaming platforms. I'm sponsored by that, and I'm also sponsored by podcasts, just podcasts in general, football podcasts. I'd tell you that I'm not actually a Rangers podcast, and don't even call myself a football podcast, because I can talk about anything. Me, just so happens. It's a diary, really. It's a diary, and football takes up most of my thoughts. Rangers take up most of my football thoughts, but football podcasts, any podcast, and how they're different from books. Podcasts are different from books. Like physical books, you can sit and leaf through the pages and read all the printed words and stuff like that, which is clearly what I'm meant to be writing. I'm meant to be writing a book. That's why these podcasts are so long. It's taken me to this point in the season to realise why my podcasts are getting totally out of control. You can have 1 to 2 hour, 2.5 hour podcasts by all means, but you need to have more than one person talking on them, Alec, to have these. So I apologise. For the length of these podcasts. This is my second in 24 hours, so at least I can split up the Hearts debrief with the Livingston preview. But check out my Hearts debrief, the last pod that I put out, if you want to get on the vibe of everything, the great stuff we're feeling after that 4-2 win over Hearts, how we did it, how we're feeling about it, and various nonsense that I like to talk about. It feels like after I've spent a week saying how Rangers having a whole week off, finally getting a midweek off, we might end up slipping up on Sunday. That's sometimes what happens. My name's Alec Anderson, alien mum, dropping lethal cargo on the ship. Tarantula, deadly cargo, it's bent it. Alien dad, dropping lethal cargo on the ship. Tarantula, deadly cargo, it's bent it. Alien mum, it's hammered me. It's bleak. Self-destruct the motor, mates. It's burnt my beak. Pathway up to medieval churches and nighttime runs. Sound checks. Leave the bar alone. It's ruined everyone. I said, well, alien mum. Anyway, I've done enough damage to that song, that beautiful tune there from the Sleaford Mods. So my name's Alec Anderson, and I am here to talk to you about Rangers going to Livingston on Sunday at the end of what's been a magical week. Have you read Demis Roussos' Wikipedia page? Demis Roussos. Demis with an M, folks. If you're not, everybody who watches this pod's the same age as me. You get what I'm talking about. My wife isn't. She's a few years younger than me, just a few. But last weekend, Valentine's weekend, I'm showing her a great time by sitting eating chicken in front of her while watching Top of the Pops 2. And appropriately enough, on comes Demis Roussos. She's like, who is that? She's like, who is this guy, Demis Roussos? He looks absolutely wild. And I'm saying, well, he's probably the reason you don't remember Demis Roussos. I must have been right young when Demis Roussos was out. And I think she started recognising the song Forever and Ever. But I'm like, Demis Roussos, that's what she's watched. I think she's watched, what do you call it, Abigail's Party, the Mike Lee stuff. No, that she loves Beverly and Alison Steadman, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Demis Roussos, and that's Demis. That's who she. Oh, is that who she's talking? That's Demis. That is the guy himself, and I'm thinking that's probably why you've ended up marrying me, massive fat bloke. really sweaty and all that. Fantastic voice, as I've demonstrated already. But because she's Scottish, that's me talking about. Because you're Scottish, that's me talking to my wife. Obviously, you wanted him to be pasty, baldy, and when he wasn't baldy, he was kind of ginger. So that's how you've got a Scottish Demis Roussos. And she says, "Where's he come from?" And I'm thinking, he's I don't know. I want to say Cyprus, maybe Greek. I'm not actually sure. I just always thought it was a kind of subliminally. I just always thought of him as a kind of male Nana Mouskouri. But I went into the Wikipedia page and I looked up Demis Roussos. He was born in Alexandria. He was born in Alexandria, Egypt. He died in Athens. Two great centres of antiquity, just adding to the classiness of Demis. He was in a prog rock group that was absolutely all the rage in that neck of the woods. They were real kind of go-getters and trendsetters. This was his second career almost, when he was doing the kind of Barry White's Walrus of Love type stuff. But I was just reading this stuff about Demis, how utterly exotic and cosmopolitan he was. And I was just reading, there's just one paragraph of his personal life on his Wikipedia page. There's a line at the bottom of it underneath that which kind of maybe spoils my bit, but I'm not going to. I'll not include that. It's some of his musical tastes. But this is the paragraph on Demis Roussos' personal life. Roussos was married 3 or possibly 4 times. This is Wikipedia. They don't know how many times he was married. Roussos was married 3 or possibly 4 times. He had a daughter, Emily, with his first wife, Monique. With his second wife, Dominique, he has a son, Cyril. Both of Roussos' children are musicians. His third wife, the American model Pamela Smith. Now, Pamela Roussos Ratchui, wife of the Romanian businessman Indrei Ratchui, married in 2004. Pamela Smith, his American model wife, was with him during the 1985 TWA plane hijacking incident. His fourth and last wife was a Parisian named Marie. That's it. For such a small paragraph, that is just absolutely sensational. Demis Roussos lived the life. He absolutely lived the life. 3, possibly 4. I'm marrying models. I'm marrying Parisian women. I'm marrying Parisian women. If I'm marrying a boringly American model, what I'll do to make that a bit more interesting is I'll be on a flight to the States, going to San Diego or from Rome or something like that, which gets hijacked by Hezbollah. And I end up getting off the plane and we kind of negotiate our way off the plane and stuff like that. It's just sensational, Demis Roussos. But he died at 68, which he could have lived longer than that. He had a bit of problem with his weight. I don't like to say, I built myself, a bit fat and all that. I don't like to say I've got a weight problem. I've got a stop and put. I mean, if I eat a lot of stuff, I get fat. If I stop eating a lot of stuff and I do a bit of exercise, I lose weight. I don't have a problem at all with my weight. I have a problem with stopping eating and drinking fatty food and drinks. But Demis Roussos, same as myself, super talented, really glamorous lifestyle, and he was fat, and it kind of killed him early. He died earlier than he should have because of the fat. And that's us. We've had a totally glamorous life since Sunday, really enjoying the riches. That was our forever and ever moment against the Jambos last week. Maybe we had a kind of prog rock moment against Celtic at Parkhead, but what a result last week. What a fantastic result. What a fantastic display, and we were enjoying all our new kind of cosmopolitan signings, our new rich Danish guys and Belgian guys and Germans. And it's tremendous, absolutely tremendous fun, super glamorous, super enjoyable. And now we're going to Livingston, where you get a bit fat like Demis, you get a bit uncomfortable. Life's a bit, and you can't enjoy it as much as you should because you're feeling a bit uncomfortable a lot of the time. And who feels more uncomfortable in life in general than the away team at Almond Vale that the Spaghetti had, whatever you want to call it? I think it's named after a taxi. It's sponsored by a taxi company these days. But this is Demis Roussos. The Demis Roussos life we are living right now as Rangers supporters. Start off with a bit of good news, just to keep up the vibe of this week. It's been a great week for us. Celtic getting scudded is actually great news for Rangers, and I'll tell you for why. And you don't need told why for a Rangers supporter. You don't need told why for a Celtic supporter, but I'll get into that in a bit. The first thing to start with, of course, is John Souttar signing a new deal. John Souttar has signed a new deal, and I did piss myself laughing when I saw the photograph flashing up, the image coming up, the thumbnail on my phone of John Souttar holding the 2027 shirt, holding a shirt saying 2027. Why didn't he just put the name about it saying May 2027? Not like Stevie May, May 2027. I'm thinking, is this not 2026? Is that really worth? Maybe he's signed until 27 minutes past 8. Maybe it's a 24-hour clock they're doing, something like that. No, it's like, we've got him. It's better than 25 past, but we couldn't quite get him to stretch until 8:30. So if we've got one of the midweek domestic kick-off, it's 7:45 kick-off, we've got him basically for most of the first half. But if it's a European game, we'll be lucky to get a half out of him. We'll be lucky to get half an hour out of him. I thought it was just quite, why are you putting that in the back of your shirt? Basically, it's like he's here for another year. And there's an option for him to stay for another year. John Souttar, but it's been a saga. His contract extension, are we keeping him in terms of it's taken a while to sort out? I think John Souttar was probably been offered the same money or something like that to stay, or maybe even a slice in his wages. I don't know, but whatever's happened, it took a while to sort out, but I don't think anybody was really kind of up in the air about it. It was the stuff of content provision for a lot of podcasts. Nobody was really creating Mary Hill. I don't think we'd have been too bothered if John Souttar left, and I don't think we're too bothered about the fact that he's staying. He's a nice big fella. Definitely got Rangers, and he's Scottish anyway, should I say, John Francis Souttar, a good Rangers man in the dressing room, a leader, etc. But I felt the 2027 shirt was just, why are you printing a new shirt when you just signed to next year? It's the end of next season, basically, May 2027. I thought it's like the equivalent of getting like one of the big cheques, the big cardboard cheques when you're making a presentation on Angel Ants on the middle of the park with Rangers players on that one. He's presenting the cheque to somebody. It's the big massive thing that you got printed up, but it's like for a £5. It's like £05.00. It's going to change my life, said recipient Alec Anderson. It's not really going to change. It's 2027. It's like he's maybe put up an Instagram post, John Souttar, saying no leaving just yet. Love heart, clock emoji, thumbs up, that kind of thing. It was a strange one, but it's been sorted. Rangers try to spin it into like amazingly good news. It was a bit sad. I feel as if I want to be nice about John Souttar, and I think he's a really good player. He's the best Scottish centre half there is just now. Like, he's the best centre half the Scotland national team have got. There's just nobody really comes close. I mean, Grant Hanley's been playing for Scotland recently, and he's scoring own goals for Falkirk in his spare time. But John Souttar, of course, is prone to the odd mistake. He's 29 and a half years old now. I don't think he's going to iron the moments, the little lapses of concentration. I don't think he's going to iron that out his game at this stage. He's a wee bit injury prone, not as much as we might have feared, but he's already had his injury problems this season. I think John Souttar, a bit like Tav, a kind of watered down version of Tav. When he's got good players around him, the better the players around him, the better he gets. And he could probably say the same for any player, but he definitely is able to slot in to a quality side and compete well. Because a quality side is to compete well in a quality side, he can fit right in there. I remember scoring a goal against Celtic. It was a 3-0 win against Celtic. Michael Beale's only Old Firm win, as far as I can remember. Certainly his first, anyway. But the league was already over towards the end of the season against Postacoglu's Celtic. He scored a goal in that. So he scored an Old Firm game into the Celtic end. We'll talk about that in a second. But I don't think anybody's cracking open the bottles of champagne because John Souttar's staying. But I think he is a good leader. I think when we beat Celtic 3-0 a year back in January, the New Year's game, which never played New Year's Day these days, but at Ibrox last season, still under Philip Clement. We beat them 3-0, and I remember seeing the footage at the end of the game that the Union Bears are in the Copeland Road by this point in time, and Diamandi, the terrible twosome, Diamandi and Raskin, are going up to the Union Bears, and I think they're wanting to get in there and grab the megaphone and start getting about it, whereas Souttar just goes up and he grabs the two of them. He certainly grabs Raskin anyway. He's like, no, come on, this is just going to lead to trouble. This is just going to be controversial. Move. No, and I think Raskin might have been captain that day. I don't know if Tav played that, but was Raskin captain that day? I think he was. So, but John Souttar is a kind of vice captain type. He reminds me of Connor Golson. I think we learned our lesson with Connor Golson in that we didn't appreciate him. I don't think he was appreciated until he was gone. I certainly appreciated him. He was rivaling Ta as my favourite player in the 55 season. Connor Golson was tremendous. He had problems as well. Balls over the top certainly became a problem. But I think he kind of got more slagging than he should have. John Souttar, he scores. Connor Golson, he scores 2 goals against Celtic at Parkhead in the first Old Firm game of 55 season for us. It just basically sorts them out. Wins that it's more meaningful. It's a more. That just represents how scaled up he is compared to John Souttar, Connor Golson. So I think maybe with John Souttar we're tempted to go, no, he's no good enough. No, learn our lesson. We're going to get somebody even worse if we get rid of John Souttar. And we won't. We're going to get much better centre-halves coming into the club. We're going to be making more signings during the summer if the 49ers are still interested in us, if they're still owning us. So John Souttar's definitely a good player. And of course there's this whole thing about a quota of Scottish-raised, Scottish-trained players that you've got to have in your squad these days. So he certainly fits into that. And Danny Röhl in his pre-match presser today said that John Souttar was a good leader and he was part of the core that Danny Röhl wants to build the squad around. And there's definitely a thing. John Souttar suits Rangers. He knows Rangers. He understands Rangers. He understands Scottish football, the Scottish national team. He's played at Hearts, played at Dundee United. He knows the game in Scotland inside out. That's invaluable. He's prone to little lapses in concentration, but he's the zero of controversial. He's a really steady guy. He's a lovely personality. He comes across really well, and he's a big physical unit. You wouldn't mess with at all. So good to see him signing on. But I just thought the way we announced it was quite. It's just basically signing a year's extension with the option to extend for another year. The good news, it was really good news. Celtic getting scalped last night. There's still another leg to go, and it'd be just like the thing if Celtic, who have never won in Germany, go and do it next week to continue in the Europa League. But I think it was really notable. They go and win 3-4-0, so they can continue having lost 4-1 last night. Now it suits us that there was a lot of kind of internecine stuff going on. That's internecine within the Old Firm, which is just lives off the internecine stuff, but the infighting at Celtic, I think their fans. I never saw that. I saw the goals. I made a point of watching the goals. I really enjoyed them, but I saw their fans had done a wee protest with throwing things on the pitch, like what we did against Hibs in the League Cup earlier this season when we were trying to get rid of Russell Martin and a few board members. Celtic are doing the same thing just now. In Martin O'Neill's post-match comments, he was saying about how that was crazy. It was totally defeating the whole. It was defeating the famous Parkhead atmosphere. It's making Stuttgart feel, or VfB feel as if they're going to be okay. It's making them more comfortable, making the opposition more comfortable. When usually opposition teams are kind of caught in the headlights of the great Parkhead European atmosphere. So I don't know if Martin O'Neill's at that stage where he's a kind of Walter Smith character there. He's the equivalent of a Walter Smith. For me, he's the very opposite of Walter Smith in so many ways. But they're equivalent. The Celtic fans are maybe like, if Martin can have a word with us, he can gut us out, and we'll just, everybody listens, nobody slags him. The same way Walter had a few things to say sometimes about the Rangers support, and we're like, right, okay. You do what you're told. So if Martin O'Neill has that respect amongst the Celtic support, that's fine. Or maybe it's going to create a few problems there, and I just mean that in the sense that it's good for Rangers, because this is going to be a really tight, really febrile end to the season. We're in that end just now. The run-in has begun. It's not a rehearsal. So anything that cranks up the bad atmosphere at Celtic definitely helps us. But also, I think in respect of the run-in and how Celtic's form and what their schedule is what it's going to do to them and how that could help Rangers, I've heard a few Rangers supporters saying they'd be quite happy for Celtic to carry on, get a good little run going in Europe, and that way they'll just drain their resources and they won't be able to win the league this season because we're already out of Europe. I say no. I just say no to that, and I was utterly delighted to see them almost certainly getting eliminated last night, because I am very proud, and I've banged on about this enough over the last couple of years, so I might as well reiterate the point just now, but it's really appropriate. We get constantly told by Celtic supporters and various other mainstream media people that we're a complete calamity, we've been a complete failure, and Rangers supporters, lots of Rangers supporters as well. Look at the amount of trophies, look at the medals that Callum McGregor's got compared to the medals that James Taffanier's got. And I've always come back and said, yeah, but European stuff, European football, look at what we've achieved. At this stage in the 21st century, Scottish teams don't need to win European trophies to have achieved in a way that is equivalent, if not better than, winning domestic honours in Scotland. They just need to probably get out the group stage, which Celtic have done this season. We didn't. I mean, it was the arse end of the group stage that Celtic got out. That's why they ended up in the playoff round. Not like ourselves last season, going through in the top 8 and qualifying automatically for the last 16. But Celtic last season got out of the Champions League group stage, which is a major achievement. I'm not saying Celtic have done nothing in Europe, but that thing of, if they're going to criticise Rangers or slag Rangers, or Rangers have been held up to have been complete failures for a generation, really, because of the lack of winners' medals, domestic winners' medals. Well, the lack of post-group stage knockout wins for Celtic compared to Rangers, and I think we're something like 7-0 up over the last 22 years. Martin O'Neill was in charge of Celtic. I think it's 2003 they get to the UEFA Cup final, and in the following season, I think it was the quarterfinals. Villarreal put them at the quarterfinals of the UEFA Cup, and they haven't won a post-group stage knockout match since then in 22 years. And in that time, Rangers have won 13 post-group stage knockout matches. This is a parallel dominance. I would say winning a knockout tie, post-group stage knockout tie in Scotland, probably getting to a quarter-final, which we have done 3 times in that 22-year period, is probably the equivalent of winning the league title, at least in Scotland. I would say that winning a qualifying from a group stage is certainly as good as winning the Scottish Cup, at least in Scotland. So Rangers and Celtic are clubs that are so big, they're so oversized for Scottish football. Look at who we're up against on Sunday. Livingston, a team that's has won one major domestic honour. But they illustrate perfectly Livingston, their tiny crowds and the stadium that they're almost were forced to build if they wanted to take part in the SPL as it was back then, and the fact that it's completely empty all the time. They've had to make this pitch this horrible plastic so they can use it as a community resource and all that kind of stuff. That's what we've done. We slagged Livingston and teams like even Kilmarnock, a great Scottish team, won all the domestic honours at one point or another. Kilmarnock reached semi-finals of European competition. They've got the plastic pitch because they have to. That's what they have to do. They have to do these things that make up the difference. That lets them just compete with Rangers and Celtic to the point where we're only getting injury time winners in the last minute against them. So when it comes to Europe, it's a level playing field. We're the wee boys. We're being bullied by everybody else. So what we do there, it's your duty to do stuff in the European scene. It's a difficult thing. Damn UEFA and their constant changing of the formats and the competition names and all that. It used to be just have a straightforward boast like, we've been in Europe after Christmas more times than you've been. But they've now changed the group stages. It even applied at first when they brought in the group stages. Still, all the group stages were finished before Christmas. They weren't. I mean, the first season of the Champions League, I went into March and April, not because they were quarter-final group stages. It only was 8 teams in 2 different groups in the first ever Champions League. But basically, it used to be, for a while, for a decade or so, UEFA would have the group stages finishing before Christmas. But now the group stage, this new Swiss system where it's 36 team groups in 3 competitions, you're playing except in the Conference League, but in the 2 bigger competitions, you are playing group stage matches in January. So it's really February before it's over, so it becomes this thing of being posed. I used to focus on last 16. And Rangers have played in the last 16 of European competition 9 times in the last 22 years, in that 22-year period since Celtic last reached a quarter-final. Since Celtic last won a post-group stage knockout match. But, for example, you get us going in 2005, 2006 under Big Eck. We go straight into the last 16 from the Champions League group. That was just the next round. We qualify for the Champions League group. So Celtic have been in the last 16 3 times in that 22-year period. The last time was 2013, mind you. It's like 13 years ago. But they all did it for going straight in from the group stage. And it's been Champions League for them all the way. But also, for example, I think when Walter came in and took over from Paul Le Guen, 2005, 2006, halfway through 2006, 2007 season, Le Guen had, sumptuously got us at the the UEFA Cup group stage as it was then. Fantastic in Europe. We went through with a game to spare under Le Guin, but it was away before the knockout stages. So Walter comes in and he beats Maccabi Tel Aviv, which gets us into our last six. It was our last 32, the round of 32 then. He wins that, and we then go on and we play Osasuna, who put us out in the last 16. You've got also the last 16, we go in automatically. The two seasons previous to this, be it via the 4-team group stage or the 36-team group stage. Philippe Clement got us twice directly into the last 16 by finishing top of the group, the first and 8th in the 36-team group. The next time, he put us straight into the last 16. We missed out the round of 30 or the knockout stage, the post-group knockout stage. So we went straight into the last 16 without winning. So we did win our last 16 match last season against Fenerbahce, but the season before that, we met Benfica, went straight on to meeting Benfica in the knockout rounds, and they beat us straight away. So sometimes we're making the last 16, but we're doing it without winning a knockout tie after the group stage. So I think the best way to look at it is, in the last 22 years in Europe, we're the only Scottish team to win a post-group stage knockout match, and we have done that. We have done that 7 times, from what I can tell. I think 7-0 basically versus other Scottish teams, and we've been to 2 finals, and they're either side of us spending those 4 years in the lower leagues. It's difficult to nail down how to word the actual boast itself, but Celtic know about it, and we know about it. I think it actually redeems. It's unbelievable, it's magical, and it's essential, because I think it kind of redeems those 4 seasons that we were in the lower leagues. You know, we've still come out of this being Scotland's #1 representative. It's within the old firm, within Scottish football. It is a parallel boast. It's a parallel dominance from Rangers, and we should never ever think anybody says to you but what Rangers have. It's a generation of underperforming in the domestic scene, but within that generation, we have been Scotland's #1 by a mile. In Europe, somebody put out a graphic, and I've seen it before. I was on Rangers Twitter. Couldn't help myself. I was just looking, not taking part, and Celtic fans were coming back to have a go at somebody, and they put up the graphic of its last 20 years, league champions of Scotland for the last 20 years, and they're just doing it via crests, you know. And Celtic have got 16 crests. We've got 4. They've cut it off at the point where Eck won the league in 2005 and all that. So they've cut it off. It's just Walter's 3 in a row from his second period, and then Steven Gerrard, 55 season. That's the only times we've won the league 4 times in the last 20 years. Celtic have won the other 16. So in that 20-year period, though, we have just dominated in terms of being Scotland's best club in Europe. I think it equates. I think it is exactly the same. And that is what has sustained us. We've known, even if we don't want to admit it to ourselves, even if we're getting such a pounding for the Celtic fans at work who've suddenly decided that European competition doesn't count. So I did not want Celtic to advance in Europe. I didn't want them to win that game last night either. I wanted to keep that. And just, we've got something. We're standing on their neck. We're standing on their throats when it comes to the European stuff. We're hopefully going to remove their foot from our throat when it comes to the domestic stuff in the same season. Infantile? No. This is what football is. This is what it's all about. This is what we're talking about here. A way you can dominate, a way your team can be the best. You always need a retort. You always need a riposte as an Old Firm fan in particular. Any football fan, really. But there's no escaping this. There's no escaping that Rangers have been absolutely magic in Europe, and it's been a terrible season, an awful season for Scottish clubs in Europe. Celtic definitely did better than anybody else, you know, but it didn't go much better, not in a notable way whatsoever, and it might not have been worth the trouble as far as they're concerned. We finished 5th bottom of that 36-team Europa League group stage. Celtic were only a few places above us, but they got through. Aberdeen were 2nd bottom of the Conference League. Aberdeen played 8 games in Europe this season, didn't win a single one. We played 8 games in that Europa League group stage, and we won 1. We drew another 1. We'd won 2 games out of the 6 Champions League qualifiers that we played, but we took a record equaling scudding off Bruges in the other one, in one of those games. It's been an awful season for us in Europe. It's been cold. A cold kind of, what Celtic fans like to call us zombies, but it felt like a zombified version, the Europa League group stage this season. It felt like a zombified version of what we've experienced last season, the season before, the European glories of previous seasons. It's felt really so it's just good to know no one else is getting away from us, because nobody else cared about us being in the lower leagues in Scottish football. So this whole thing about the coefficient and fuck the lot of yous. Everybody's quite happy to mock Rangers when they lose in Europe. I'm quite happy to mock our rivals when they lose in Europe as well. Dundee United, it's an argument to say it's either Dundee United or Hibs that have done the best. Neither of them made the group stages, but Dundee United's went out in penalties to Rapid Vienna, and they won home and away, 1-0 each time, against a team from Luxembourg. We've been at the right end of that, winning 1-0 at home against a team from Luxembourg and then losing 2-0 away, so we can't mock that, but they were 2-0 up, 4-2 up in aggregate at Tannadice in the second leg of their kind of playoff, or whatever it was, our third qualifying round, I can't remember exactly what stage they were at, and Rapid Vienna come back to 4 each in aggregate and beat them in penalties. And Hibs, I think probably their win over Partizan Belgrade is maybe one of the best results for Scottish teams this season in Europe, maybe the only good one. And even then, they won 2-0 in Belgrade against Partizan. Then they had to go to extra time with them at Easter Road. Hibs games were very, very exciting, all three of them, but again, they didn't make the group stage. A terrible, terrible season for Scottish clubs in Europe, and that's fine. That's fine, because it means nobody's out-achieving Rangers over the last 20 years. Scotland's number one. On that note of bitterness and rivalry and what have you, Celtic are coming to Ibrox next Sunday, and then the following Sunday again in the Scottish Cup, and as you'll have seen, no doubt, they're going to get the Broomloan Road stand. 7,500 tickets that they're going to get. I'm not happy about that at all, it has to be said. But that's the way it goes. Various reasons for not being happy about it. Remember, when it shifts our own fans out of there, it means, I think we've got season ticket holders in the Broomloan. I've never really looked into the season ticket. I'm in the main stand. I've never had a season ticket for the Broomloan. It wasn't an option for most of my life, and it's just because we've cut the Celtic allocation, it's become a thing. If you're a season ticket holder in the Broomloan, do you have small print as an asterisk on the agreement telling you that if we get Celtic in the Scottish Cup, you're going to get moved? Because that's what's going to happen, which is a bit weird. It's part of an agreement. I don't know if it's hard and fast rules, but the tradition is in the Scottish Cup, the away team gets 20% of the ticket allocation. They get 20% of the tickets, 20% of the capacity. So with Ibrox, as we know, the biggest crowd at Ibrox for 48 years last Sunday against Hearts, but still a few hundred short of our total capacity just now, which is 51,700. So 20% of that is 10,340. You know, so it still mean we've got 40,000 to their 10,000, and we're still outnumbering them 41. But I think with the whole Broomloan being easier probably for police, for segregation, the police will have been involved in this. They wanted us to sort it out amongst ourselves, but they must have been heavily involved, heavily consulted, and our security people would know what they're talking about. It's easier to police, I would imagine, just having the Celtic fans in the Broomloan, which is now attached. When Celtic first were coming to the new Ibrox 40 odd years ago, it was a detached stand. It was three, independent goalpost stands that we built when we redeveloped Ibrox in the 70s. So they had the Broomloan Road stand, but now it's attached with a wee corner bit, which is where they get their allocation goes when they're getting the reduced allocation. It's been an ongoing war between ourselves and Celtic over the years, and that's part of why I'm not so interested in having Celtic fans at Ibrox. A lot of Rangers fans, it's good to have if they get a bigger crowd at Ibrox, well, we should eventually start getting it at Parkhead, and it makes for a better atmosphere. It just doesn't. I don't like Old Firm games. I don't like all the bitterness. I like it when we've won them, and that they're definitely great games to win, but I don't enjoy the sectarian shit. I really don't enjoy it, because you feel it. You start feeling it. That is the problem. You get carried away in the moment. You start, it's no nice stuff. It's infantile stuff that you don't want to tap into. It's evil stuff. And I don't like to have Celtic there taunting us and we're taunting them. And I think what's sad, it's because the whole thing going on with Celtic, with the club itself, the Celtic fans just folk that are born to support their team, and we're born to support our team. Nobody changes their mind, as I'm always saying. Nobody kind of wakes, I actually thought that team's more intellectual. The political points the Rangers supporters have got is, I'm going to abandon my Parkhead season ticket and start supporting Rangers, or vice versa. You've got your team and that's it. It's not exactly a celebration of independent thinking. It's all about tribalism, the football. So you're supposed to switch your brain off. But the club, Celtic especially under Peter Lawwell, they mounted a kind of campaign against us it got to the point where it was self-mocking for Celtic because they're starting putting out official stuff about how they've got an unbroken history and all that, implying that we had a... Why would you mention that? What is that? Something you want to talk about? It's like you're officially becoming about Rangers, and we all know the whole thing about them refusing to use the term Old Firm, which is a complete misunderstanding. Use whatever language you want. Don't have to use any phrases you don't want to, but don't license them. Keep licensing them so they can still make money off it as they're half of the Old Firm. But we don't want to be half of anything, and now they want to get a quarter of our stadium. And I think there's a big mix-up with the Celtic fans as well between, oh yeah, we're coming to take over your stadium, but we don't think you exist, or whatever it was. You died in 2012. I've yet to see an empty seat when it comes to Celtic fans turning up for Old Firm games. Or Rangers Celtic games. Glasgow derbies, whatever they want to call them. It's... for Celtic to not use our name when we first come back into the top flight was just kind of gaslighting, rage bait and stuff in itself. And to be honest, I just wouldn't want them back in the stadium. I think there should be away supporters there, but it should be incremental, and we'll see how it goes. It's become a bit of a political football, pun intended, between the clubs. I think what Rangers should... It's owned by the 49ers now. And the 49ers were at Candlestick Park before Parag Marathi got them. The Levi Stadium, which has hosted the Super Bowl the other week. When they used to be at Candlestick Park back in Joe Montana's days, it was a baseball stadium. Obviously, the San Francisco Giants played there for the baseball, and then they would change it. They had this stand that would come out, the baseball pitch, different shape, more space needed for the baseball than there was for the gridiron. So they would bring in this stand that would wheel out from underneath, and it was like a drawer getting pulled out. It was an extra 10,000 seats or whatever they provided for. They provided for the gridiron, for the NFL stuff, for the 49ers. We should get one of them and just spin it out so it's facing onto Edmiston Drive. It's facing out like a petrol station. And did it was Bellahouston Park. Just wheel it out, turn it round like a big open door, the Broomloan. Get it on rollers and just wheel it out so they're all having to crank their necks to watch the game. Because the whole thing is, I heard it getting talked about in Rangers Review today, and I've said it a few times myself, we get shoved up in that corner. Celtic, even we get a full allocation at Parkhead, we get like 9,000 tickets even for Parkhead, you still feel as if you're stuck up somebody's loft. We still managed to find a pokey corner somewhere at Parkhead. When it used to be a terracing, we'd have like 18, 20,000 was the allocation for Rangers when Parkhead held like 67,000 terracing back in the day. But like 17,500 of us were behind a floodlight pylon, and there only was 2 floodlights up that end. It's just somehow they made it so the views were terrible, and it's the same thing. So Celtic get this stand that's square on the goals and gives them a wall of colour, of their own supporters to shoot into in the second half. But the other thing I don't like about this is, apart from anything else, it's been so long since Celtic have had the full stand at Parkhead. I'm assuming it's a compromise, I say, because it's probably easier to police just having the Broomloan, and it's such a significant increase in their usual allocation at Ibrox for league games. But it can also still let them complain that we've been scared to have more of their supporters in the stadium. Somehow we're still not letting their fans into the stadium. I think what they did, with the women's game, the Celtic women's team coming to Ibrox, that was absolutely sickening when they turned that into some sort of martyrdom. The Green Brigade, who have been banned by Celtic, were going to come along to Ibrox, and the women's games are great because there's no need for massive policing. They kind of police themselves in the main. They're very peaceful, very family oriented. And the Green Brigade were going to get involved and come along and cause havoc, and we couldn't police them because of the whole Celtic end, so be able to run riot in the stadium. So it was just easier. You couldn't figure out what Celtic fan was who, so we just had to ban Celtic fans. The Green Brigade ruined that, but it turned into football's nothing without the people, nothing without the fans, all this kind of stuff. I thought it was sickening. So there'll be a lot of that going on as well, I would imagine. A lot of that kind of martyrdom stuff. You would have to have had Celtic fans to make up a 10,300 odds allocation. They'd have to be in the Govan. It used to be, and this is what they used to get back in the 80s. Used to get the whole of the Broomloan, and they'd be in the Govan top and bottom. The red section red. You've heard it been said, we are the section red. Celtic are dead, you are the Ibrox section red. They used to be in there, I'm sure. Govan, top and bottom, one section of that. the whole of the West Enclosure and sometimes on the main stand as well. You know, and Ibrox only held like 44,000 in the day, so that was a lot more. And it was just Old Firm games had been kind of half and half. I know that back in the day, before my day, Rangers used to get a bit of the jungle, the old jungle at Parkhead, as well as the whole Rangers end, and a bit of the main stand as well. Increasingly smaller bit of the main stand as time went on, but that's what's been happening with the Old Firm games down the years. The only time you get a real split anymore is at Hampden. Is the capacity of the grounds have been reduced as well. It makes it more difficult, but they would have to have got that'd be a security nightmare to police that, to have them in other stands. It's much easier to get them in there, but also it's been a while. It's bound to be. I don't know if Celtic fans can kind of cope with it. It's kind of normalised before. Now it's like, oh, we're turning up en masse at Ibrox. Might get a bit excited, but you also have the unknown factor, the variable of what's going to happen the week before or next week, as we look at it from this part of the calendar. When we play them in the league game at Ibrox, we know ourselves, and Rangers are doing this more now as well. When whoever loses the Old Firm game, but Celtic are the masters of this. If they lose an Old Firm game or they don't get the result they're looking for, they find a grievance and they build that grievance and they build it and they exploit it and they double down on it and a whole lot of gaslight and stuff, and it's not about the actual objective worth of the grievance itself. It's about how much hysteria you can get behind it to the point where you've been cheated. Never defeated, always cheated. And if that atmosphere... We did it ourselves with Trusty kicking Jack Butland in the head, or lightly tapping him with his boot in the head in the League Cup semi-final that we lost to Celtic this season. And I don't know if Celtic, under Martin, because Martin O'Neill has a reputation for this, he's a record of doing this, you know, making it about Neil Lennon. Celtic fans turned it into a banner. We cuffed Celtic one day at Ibrox, and that was a day they decided to speak up about. And the sickening sectarian stuff goes on both ways. Both ways, make no doubt about it. But Neil Lennon was a martyr, and Neil goes out. Celtic have been beaten, but he's also got to change the subject, Martin. So he goes out onto the park up to the Celtic support at the end of the game with his arm around Neil Lennon, and then they turned that, they silhouetted that and put it in a banner the next time they came to Ibrox. You know, we've got a player you don't like. You know, you love all our players. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about? So it's that kind of thing. Sometimes he gets his excuses in beforehand and tries to create shit. I've gone on enough about what he did after the in the build up to that game in 2002, 2003, or the last Old Firm game at Ibrox in 2002, 2003 when it was neck and neck and Celtic won the UEFA Cup semi-final. So I just wonder what's going to happen where there's if we were to win, or if Celtic were to win, whoever wins the Old Firm game the previous week in the league, maybe it's a draw, there'll still be grievances. That gets a week to fester, but it's not enough time for it to dissipate. I think Celtic will have a league game in the Wednesday in between. I don't know. But Celtic are coming to Parkhead, and we've already beat them in the league game, and maybe they're looking like they're out of Europe. They're falling behind in the league race, and this is the only trophy they're going to be able to win this season. We beat them in the Scottish Cup. I don't know. Things could get bad. I think there's a worry that there could be trouble. There could be ill feeling there. When I saw Prestiani of Benfica doing his little racist thing under his shirt the other night against Vinicius Junior, I'm just thinking, and people were learning about the cross arm sign from the referee to say somebody's been racially abused. And I've had this years from Celtic fans saying that, you know, to abuse them, talk about the famine is over, all that kind of stuff. That's the equivalent. That's racial abuse. That's an argument, but it's not nice. You know, we certainly get it the other way as well. But I just feel an opportunist like Martin O'Neill, that could be the thing, you know, because we do give it the Billy Boys. It came out last Sunday against Hearts. When Rangers have a significant win on our way back up through the leagues and getting back to our glories of the past domestically, anytime we have a major victory, particularly if it's been a tight game, the Billy Boys comes out. I remember us doing it against Queen's Park in the 3rd Division. Fraser Aird scored a last-minute winner against Queen's Park live on Setanta. And at Saturday lunchtime, it's 0-0 with Queen's Park at Hampden in the 3rd Division. It's really embarrassing. And then we score. And everybody starts singing the Billy Boy. I didn't. I abstain these days. I do abstain these days. I swear on both my Catholic grandfather's lives or deaths, their memories. But I feel that's going to come out. That comes out. It's a reaction to it's hate. It's no celebration. It's a kind of fuck yous. The abuse we've been taking for years, the slagging we've been getting in mainstream media, etc. For over a decade now since our time in the lower leagues. I feel as if it comes out in a kind of any time there's any feeling of catharsis or vindication, it's a kind of it's vindictive. Out comes this song that is more now about we singing this song because it's prescribed, because it's sickening, because everybody else hates it, because we want you to hate us, because we fucking hate you, kind of thing, and we suffered, and here we are, we're back in your face, and we owed this, all of Scottish football wanted is dead, we'll remember that. And I think that's why it comes out and it's the wrong thing. We need to find something else to sing, because that could get us that, it could get us 3 points dropped. Never know. Martin might break that out next week. If things are going against him in the league game at Ibrox, we don't know. But I have a funny feeling with a whole week to build up the grievances. It's not like the League Cup semi-final, for example. Rangers and Celtic have got European games to play after that. They've got other teams to play, and it just all the kind of stuff about the trusty kicking Jack Butler under the head, that just gets forgotten about eventually. It fades away. It's not going to get a chance to. It's going to be an echo chamber. They're back the following Sunday, but they're back with 7,500 supporters. That in itself could wind up our nutters. Who knows? My snagging items from the last pod I did for the pod I did about the Hearts debrief pod. What did I call it? Röhl is another fat one, Dan. Röhl is another fat one, Dan. Sensational pattern. It's either that or the Billy Boys. So that's the title of it. Go and check it out if you want to know what I was thinking about the Hearts game. And the one thing I mentioned in that was I didn't finish the point I was making about. I wasn't completely on board with all the self-congratulation about the atmosphere we created at Ibrox last week and how sensational it was and all that, mostly because for most of the season I've been saying, could it be less toxic? Could we just make it a bit less toxic towards our own players? And suddenly folk are going, oh my God, see if we back the team, they actually did quite well. A lot of it's because the team are getting better as well, but I wasn't quite on board with all that, and I was trying to explain why, and I was talking about the 0-0, how bad an advert that was for Scottish football when we drew 0-0 with Celtic, Brendan Rodgers versus Russell Martin in the first Old Firm game this season. It's probably the worst Old Firm game I've ever seen. But before that game, both teams had just been put out of Europe, humiliated in the Champions League, both sides in different ways during the week in the build-up to that game. But watching Rangers review, etc., who are first and foremost when it comes to congratulating us in the atmosphere we created last week against Hearts, they were saying, can you imagine how toxic it is? It's toxic already. What will happen if Celtic score early doors? That was a big thing. A few different sources coming out with this. What's going to happen if Celtic score early doors against Rangers? If Rangers go behind to Celtic early? Oh, I wouldn't want to be there, they said, meaning I do want to be there and I want to watch people getting arrested, run onto the pitch to try and punch Russell Martin and stuff. It was getting really bad. We were getting almost incited to create some sort of extreme, magical atmosphere or horrific atmosphere. Everything else is bad copy. So that was the point I was trying to make with that. I also want to say, and it sounds maybe not the best atmosphere, the stuff I'm talking about, in which to mention this, but, or maybe it is, considering he played the Tooth Fairy, one of the most horrific characters in could you call it literature? Could you call the Hannibal Lecter books literature? Red Dragon thing with Harrison? Can't remember the author's name. But the film version, a work of art by Michael Mann, Manhunter, the Tooth Fairy, Francis Dolarhyde, the character Francis Dolarhyde, played by Tom Noonan, who I didn't know died last Saturday, Valentine's Day. Tom, I think he was 74, 75 years old. 6'5", former basketball player. I was talking about basketball in my previous podcast. But he's a fantastic. For me, it's Kelso. He'll always be Kelso from Heat, from Michael Mann. Also, Michael Mann directing him in Heat, the 1995 LA crime saga. Manhunter, which is the first of the first time Hannibal Lecter appeared on film, played by Brian Cox, Scottish actor Brian Cox. Very Miami Vice era Michael Mann. Everything's very pastel and white and clean, and it's a great film, Manhunter. It's fantastic. But in that, Francis Dolarhyde, a.k.a. the Tooth Fairy, is a psychopath, a murderer. It's a brilliant film. I'd watched that a few times. I've seen it a few times. I was already loving my Michael Mann. Obviously, I was massively in love with Heat. And back, it's circa 1999, 98, 99. My now wife and I, we just moved in together, and we're staying in this wee flat, wee flat in Glasgow, and it was up on the first floor, and I had the bedroom had a tiny wee kind of, almost an attic window. It wasn't an attic, but it was a big bedroom, but it was a wee window that was up high, and we were on the first floor, but the building on the ground floor was an extra kind of, I don't know, it was an old wash house or something like that, and it had a pitched roof that would just, if you really thought there was any steal from our flat, you could have climbed up a drain pipe on the pitched roof. But it's something I hadn't really thought about. I don't really worry about these things. And I watched Manhunter, but my wife was finding it absolutely terrifying. And I'm thinking, what is it about a big guy who's watching you all night and then breaks into your house and slashes your throat with bits of a bathroom mirror that he's broken up, just so he can make you worship him as a god, as a dragon, as the red dragon? What is it about that that's terrifying? I suddenly realised, oh no, it's quite scary. It's quite scary. And she watches, oh my God, that's funny. I don't really kind of seen the action aspect of it and the story, and plus Brian Cox playing Hannibal Lecter. It's the best Hannibal Lecter, as pretentious would-be hipsters like myself used to say. So we went to bed, went to sleep, and my wife has a nightmare about it. She has a nightmare about it. And I'm not somebody, I don't have night terrors. I get nightmares like everybody else, but I don't think I've ever woke up in a kind of dramatic fashion or anything like that, But she woke up, and I think she's had a couple of times night terrors in the whole. We've been married for like more than quarter of a century now. But she woke up giving it. She just kind of woke up. Oh, there's somebody in the house. Something like that. She was half asleep. She was still really asleep, and she kind of sat up, going, "Oh, get out! There's somebody." But it must have got to me as well. I wasn't asleep. I was instantly awake, and I was kind of half asleep, and I was started lashing out as if somebody was in the room. Right then, come on, fucking did it. So I must have been, subliminally prepping for this moment after I'd watched her being terrified at the film. But because she was used to having these kind of nightmares every now and then, she just kind of woke up, and she just suddenly snapped out of it, and she went, "Oh God, I'm just dreaming. Sorry, don't look at the state of you." And went back to sleep. Fine. I was fucking terrified. For like the next 48 hours, I basically experienced a home invasion without there being an actual home invasion. But I'd woke up, I was kind of swinging like I'm going to have to defend myself, and then, do anything you want to the girl, just don't touch me, as the man says. But I was still trying to defend this with my life. I thought we're going to get my throat slashed in one sleep. I thought the tooth fairy has got through this wee window in the bedroom. Oh my God, he wouldn't even have fitted through it, Tom Noonan. But so when I went and watched Heat again straight away, just so I could see Tom Noonan playing Kelso, where he's an evil genius. He's a criminal mastermind. But he's just literally the brains of the operation. He is the guy who sorts out, how they're going to break into the bank, and he'll trick out the alarm systems and all that. And he's got the schematics. It's 1995 Heat, and he sits there, Tom Noonan playing Kelso. He's in a wheelchair. He's like kind of boffin, if you like, an evil boffin who's a nice guy. He's chilled out in his house, kind of isolated house next to the interstate in LA, and it's up high on a hill, and it's got like aerials and huge satellites and everything. It's just at the point where the internet's becoming one of these things that it's still, communication is still about picking up actual phone lines and picking up radio signals and things like that. And he's hacked into the bank's kind of computer system and managed to get all the schematics, get all the architectural plans for the bank, so he can tell Robert De Niro's Neil McCauley and their crew how to break into the alarm system the night before they go into the bank, strong through the door, and switch off the alarm systems so that the police don't come, the police don't know about it. They get it switched off for the time they're going to go in and just walk in the front door and hold up the bank. So it's brilliant, and I had to keep watching that to see Tom Noonan, such a good actor, that no, it's him. It's not the Tooth Fairy anymore. The Tooth Fairy does a bit where he puts a guy in a wheelchair, he straps him to a wheelchair, and then he bites his face off, sets him on fire, and throws him down a parking lot ramp, in a car park. I found out his dad's a dentist. Tom Noonan's dad, the actor, his dad was actually a dentist. And Tom Noonan didn't go to acting school or anything like that, but he was a basketball player at college, 6'5", and that's how he learned to perform in front of audiences that wanted to entertain him. So R.I.P. Tom Noonan. That's, sorry, it was a real tight crew. We've now got, I think, Ricky Harris, who plays Albert Torina in Heat. I think he was the first one to die. The criminal informant. What do you want for that? A Junior G-Man badge? That's what Tone Loke and Ricky Harris in that scene. Val Kilmer, of course, he's died. Tom Sizemore. So that's Val Kilmer playing Chris Hearless, Tom Sizemore playing Michael Chirito, and Tom Noonan playing Kelso. That's 4 of the main players in Heat no longer with us. That film was 31 years ago, but it's very, very sad. Danny Rogue's presser, sorry, again, this is taking far too long. He said there was small injuries, which made everybody's heart sink. There was going to have to be changes to the team on Sunday, I'm assuming, from the starting 11 against Hearts. Little moments when you can't quite understand what he's saying, or his intonations are different. It's all German-English thing lost in translation. But I think what he was saying was, one of the injuries will be for a couple of weeks, but that's the longest of the 2 or 3. He didn't specify who was injured. I don't think he said how many either. So it could be 2. It could be different plural anyway. It could be 2 or 3 injuries. And he also mentioned something, again, I couldn't quite pick it up right. Maybe other news sources have ironed it out with him about the surface at Livingston being part of his decision about the squad. So I don't know if it's somebody who's injured only in the sense that they can't play on a plastic surface. So they'll be back for this. But if somebody's out for a couple of weeks, that's somebody who's going to miss, you would imagine, at least the first Old Firm game next Sunday. So interesting to see what's happening. He didn't want to confirm who it was, didn't want to give anything away, but I just bet one of them is John Sterling. It's going to be John Sterling, isn't it? Derek Cornelius, he's training with the team again. He's got number 13 jersey. He should give that to Ryan Nadiri. So he's got the Thomas Muller. Thomas Muller's dad's called Gerhard Muller. It's not the Gerdy Muller, but it's Thomas Muller and Gerd Muller, both were number 13, playing for Germany. Both were Golden Boot at the World Cup. Both won the World Cup, but not in the World Cup. They were the Golden Boot. Both played for Bayern Munich. Both played in they both scored in the Champions League European Cup final. Thomas Muller scored and played in 4 Champions League finals. Gerd Muller only played in 3, but he won all 3 of his. Thomas Muller only won 2 of his. They both. The links are quite amazing. And if Danny Röhl's going to talk about Ryan Nadiri's Thomas Muller, he should get Derek Cornelius to swap him the number 13 jersey. But Derek Cornelius is back training with the team again. Connor Barron's also coming back in the next few weeks to training. I think that means so. No immediate return for him. John Souttar did a good job so far. Very happy that he's continuing to be a leader in one of the team. The Hearts game last weekend, how's that set us up? One of the journalists was asking, how great does it feel to have beaten Hearts last week? Has it changed the vibe? He said it was a good statement. Daniel said it was a good statement, that win, but in general, you have to go game to game. Players have been motivated all week, even the ones that aren't in the squad, the ones that are still injured. It's important to keep the intensity in training, but also, especially, what now feels like the first free week he's had since he's been here, the first midweek without a game since he's been. He says that it feels like that anyway. It can't be. But it's certainly not had many. It's also really important to give the players some rest. Just give them some rest, as well as keeping everybody focused. But it sounds like there's definitely a buzz about the place, as Paul McStay would say. Has Chermiti kind of arrived? Was with a patter from one of the journalists, wanting to talk about Chermiti's hat-trick against the Jambos. And he said Yusuf was always trying to score, says Danny Röhl. Every game he was trying to score. And again, he just does this thing. Basically, he's saying, well, I always liked him anyway. He's neither up nor down. It's that thing of just keeping everyone on an even keel. I wasn't criticising Chermiti before, and now he scored a hat-trick. I don't think he's sliced bread. You don't think he's the best thing since sliced bread, but it was definitely a great hat-trick. He constantly refers everything back to the whole squad. It doesn't want to praise one member of the squad too much. I think you often miss the fact that Danny Röhl doesn't answer the question he's been asked. He'll give you plenty of chat. He'll answer he'll give you plenty of talk back if you ask him a question, but sometimes it's very much not an answer to the question you've specifically asked. So if he doesn't like your question, he'll just talk to you quite pleasantly. You won't realise you've been blanked. It's really good. Ryan Nadiri, he was getting asked about him. Is he helping Chermiti? Is he part of the reason Chermiti scored the hat-trick? And he is. He clearly was. That's obviously... Chermiti's a young guy and he's put up front on his own with that price tag on his back. He was relaxed last week as much as anything else. But talking about Nadiri, Danny Röhl said he's very good against the ball, he's sharp, he's got lots of intensity, and he reminds Danny Röhl of Thomas Müller, who, of course, Danny Röhl worked with at Bayern. You know, so it's not a kind of outlandish comparison. It is in terms of, as I say, Thomas Müller featured in 4 Champions League finals. He won 2 of them for Bayern. And in the last of those in 2020, beating PSG in the Stadium of Light when there was nobody there because of the COVID era. That's Danny Röhl wasn't the staff. He was on the coaching team, Hansi Flick's coaching team at that Champions League final. But Thomas Müller's first Champions League final was in 2010 when Bayern lost 2-0 to Jose Mourinho's Inter. 2 Diego Milito goals. The first Champions League final that was played on a Saturday. Well, in the modern era anyway. I need to check the dates of the earlier ones. But he was younger then, I'm sure, than Ryan Nadiri is just now. So he's already at that level. I think it's just because he's worked. It's the best kind of comparison he can think of. He's got that style. But he lost his first Champions League final when he was younger than Nadiri is just now. Sometimes it's good to have 2 strikers, said Danny Röhl. It gives us good structure and gives the other striker more time. I think that is the difference. This is the difference. It does give the other striker more time. He was saying this when we struggled to score at Hibs, when we struggled to score at Motherwell. He said, we need to take more time in the box. And I was like, why do you need to take more time? Surely you got to hit the ball earlier, but this is what he's talking about. Just it makes everybody feel calmer. They've got a bit more space, they've got a bit more time on the ball. And you saw that with Big Youssef last week, I thought, knowing that he's got another striker working alongside him. And Ryan Nadiri does work really hard, does great stuff for his teammates. But again, fairly non-committal from Danny Röhl. He was asked if the Celtic late winner at Rugby Park just before we kicked off against Hearts last Sunday, had that affected him? And he said he'd be lying, Danny Röhl said he'd be lying if he'd focused just on our game. I'd be lying if I tell you I wasn't looking at the Celtic result. And he was saying how a lot of people, was it in the boxes? As if, I remember the hospitality boxes were really surprised. You could hear them say, oh my God, they've scored. They've actually won this game after being 2-0 down. And it's good this way of dealing with it. He's kind of smiling as he says it. It's self-effacing. It's very self-effacing and honest. I think it would create an uptightness about the squad, about his own demeanour, if he tried to kind of stonewall that kind of question. You're just like, no, I didn't look at their game. I didn't look at their result. It didn't mean anything to me. And I think that's just a lie. You know, you should be looking at their game to see how they've got on. But he says, but you have to quickly move on and focus on your own job. And he mentioned Arsenal at Wolves during the week as an example of why you can never get lazy or lose focus. So that's kind of lose focus now that we won a big game at the weekend, and we can't lose focus and ambition and being upbeat, despite the fact Celtic had just scored a late winner before kick-off against Hearts. So that was a point well made. Chris Jack was asking him, how much will it mean to you personally, Chris Jack of Rangers Review, Herald, Evening Times, how much will it mean to you personally if you can win this title? And it's fucking February, Chris. It's just February is basically what I think Danny Röhl was saying. And again, it's one of those ones he has to say something, but it'll mean a lot. It'll mean a lot, but it's mostly about his team and his players and retaining that focus he kept emphasising. It could be a good weekend this weekend, but only if we invest again in lots of good things. We're only second. He mentioned only being second in the league. So it's like, yeah, I'll know completely blank the question. It'd be great, but it's about the team, it's about the players, it's about the fans. That's what it's all about. It's not about me. And they moved that on. Is it a team of winners you have now? Is somebody was basically asking him. This is just like after us being a team of total losers last Wednesday night, a week back in Wednesday, and you can see that in Danny Röhl's face. And again, this one he answered a different question. He was asked basically if the team that are all, you can see there's a dressing room of winners now. No, when we go to Fir Park and Easter Road, it was clearly what Danny Röhl was thinking, but he just started talking all about the process of winning the league and how the league will split in 5 games time into the top 6, 6 games time into the top 6, and how the team that's most consistent will win the title. There's a lot of truisms and stuff like that. are all your new signings brilliant and everything's amazing now? It's basically what he's getting asked, and he talks up Manny Fernandez and Jaden Magoma, guys that he hadn't signed, guys that were at the club before him. He just talked about Scott Olsen, but immediately brings it back to the whole squad. No man left behind. He's clearly focused. Are we? So we're playing Livingston. This will be the last time we play Livingston this season. On Sunday, and we've just played Kilmarnock recently for the third and last time this season. We beat them all 3 times. Let's see if we can do the same. We Livingston, we put 3 and 3 and 5 past Kilmarnock. We beat Livingston 2-1 and 2-1. I don't know what it's going to be. It's in lieu of us getting any kind of win against Dundee United and Falkirk, with whom we've drawn. The 2 games we've played against each of them so far this season. 1 at home, 1 and away. Livingston historically, Ferrante Thistle, well before my time. Meadowbank Thistle, Meadowbank Stadium, Commonwealth Stadium, the kind of 70s and 80s job, and Livingston at Almond Vale. It started happening. The Livingston thing was in the 90s, wasn't it? Late 90s, but it basically, the mid 90s, but it's basically a very 21st century thing. Livy on the plastic. League Cup winners, League Cup runners up, current Challenge Cup holders. They'll probably compete in that again next season, the Challenge Cup. Livingston are kind of born of innovation. And someone, it would seem, trying too hard to change the Scottish football landscape, but I think that's to be commended. I think the Edinburgh-based kind of Meadowbank fans, most of who now support Edinburgh City, who had to become FC Edinburgh, just in case they were getting sick of everything changing for their football club, or in case they were getting too used to a bit of steadiness, a bit of security. We'll start changing things about here as well, with the infrastructure, the name of the team and all that. No, just going to give us some sort of stability in our life. I think they would be the people that were most aggrieved, or deserve to be most aggrieved. I think a lot of Meadowbank fans just abandoned Livingston and became Edinburgh City fans. But they're the ones with the real right to be upset about Livy, who kind of tailored themselves to the SPL stadium requirements and get totally shafted as a result. It's not just about that, not bad investments and stuff like that, but directly or indirectly, they went for it. They bought into the SPL's ambitious ideas of itself back in the day. Falkirk as well, couldn't go up because Brockville was Neil City. Can you imagine the snobbery, the state the Scottish football got itself in after that, and because of that, as much as ourselves. But with the Old Firm are having seasons in Europe like last season. Last season I noted the fact that Celtic in the Champions League drew in Bergamo with Atalanta. They drew away to the holders of the Europa League. And us in the Europa League, we drew away to the holders of the Conference League when we drew with Olympiacos of Piraeus. It was a good season for Rangers and Celtic last season in Europe. Even in those seasons, when we've had, I know Livingston weren't in the top flight last season, but in those kind of seasons, Livingston are always waiting to remind us where we come from. They're no different from most of the rest of Scottish football history. They just did it a bit more recently. It's all mergers and just maybe even just going back to the Victorian days. The idea of stability in Scottish football's pretty nonsensical. It's just mostly when you were born, you think everything's always going to stay the same. But this season, Livingston are bottom. They've only got 12 points. They've only won one league game all season. And I think it was the second league game of the season back in August at home to Falkirk. Away to Falkirk? Home to Falkirk. They beat Falkirk anyway, and they haven't won a league game since then. They're 8 points adrift of Kilmarnock in second bottom. They're in the kind of relegation playoff spots. They're 11 points off St Mirren, who are third bottom, and St Mirren got a game in hand on, I think, both themselves and Kilmarnock. It looks like they're going down. There were a few draws in 2026, though, after a 6-2 gubbin at Pittodrie, and then a 2-0 home loss to Motherwell when they never really laid a glove on the visitors. Davy Martindale just decided to move upstairs, and Marvin Bartley took over as manager of Livy. So he's been there basically not even a month yet, but he's took over and tightened them up. Only lost to Celtic at Parkhead thanks to an injury time winner, as we well know. That was a week back in Wednesday. And last Saturday they were 2-0 down to Dundee at Dens Park after 5 minutes at Livingston, and by the 20th minute it was all square again, and that was the final score, 2 each. Tricky. Both games this season, we've been 2-1. We've won both our previous encounters with Livingston this season in the league. I think Hibs put them at the League Cup just before, the round before we put Hibs at the League Cup this season, and St Mirren put them at the Scottish Cup on penalties. and I think they drew again with St Mirren at Almondvale a few days later in the league. So that's the kind of level that they just kind of get the points on board, but they're just very, very difficult to beat, except in that wild night that Aberdeen beat them 6-2. That was kind of crazy. Aye, it's a dodgy opponent, Livingston. Ibrox in November, we beat them 2-1, and it was the start of that spate of games at Ibrox where we were winning narrowly. We beat Motherwell 1-0, we ended up beating St Mirren 2-1, we beat Hibs 1-0. We drew 0-0 with Falkirk. I think before that, Danny Röhl had a bad loss to Branberg, and he lost to Celtic in the League Cup semi-final, but wasn't really getting any blame for these because it was just in the door. And he beat Kilmarnock 3-1 at Ibrox, beat Hibs at Easter Road, he beat Dundee 3-0 at Dens. It was like, yeah, Danny Röhl, he is rather cool. But this wee run was kind of the make or break thing. I think it got a bit stodgy for Danny Röhl. And I think the start of it was us when we beat Livingston 2-1. Was that November? And we were struggling. I think Emi Fernandez scores. We go, or Manny Fernandez, we went 1-0 about 9 minutes in, and then it was one each by the 18th minute. And I remember big Manny Fernandez also handled the ball. I saw it right in front of me. I thought, he's just handled that. That should be a penalty. Referee VAR never saw it. It's one we definitely got away with, and I think it was proven in Wally Collum's review of the month or whatever. I think he came out and said that should have been a penalty. System failure. So we got off with that one, and the second half it was a bit. We brought on Miovski and then we brought on Bajrami for Antman and Asgard, and I think they started combining quite well, those two. Diamandi scores with about 12 minutes to go. 11 or 12 minutes to go, and it's after, I think it was Miovski maybe put the ball through, but Miovski and Bajrami seemed to have a wee understanding with each other, and they gave us a bit more kind of imagination, not much more, just enough to win the game, but we're up against it in that game, and it was a horrible game. Almost, not in any way actually, not almost as horrible as the time we played them at Almondvale. One of the most incredible days of my life supporting Rangers. I wasn't at the game where we played them in September, our first league win under Russell Martin in what would be his second last league game in charge. He only had one more game in charge, that draw with Falkirk, and he was gone. Where we were doing quite well in the first half. James Tavernier scores a fantastic goal, about half an hour or something like that. A fantastic twisting volley, Tav, a great goal. And then I think we miss a penalty. Did Tav miss a penalty? I think that's what it was. But we're cruising. We looked like we're cruising. I'm thinking we're not cruising. I hate that when you're only winning 1-0, but you seem to have lots of the ball, but you can never quite get the second goal. And it was well, it doesn't come. And sure enough, we just over 20 minutes to go. Second half, Livingston we just went right backwards in the second half. Livingston playing us off the park. They get the equaliser, and that was it. We'd lost one and drawn 3 of our previous league games under Russell Martin, and things had gone badly in Bruges as well in Europe, and people were just done with them. That was it. Martin get to fuck was ringing out from the moment that Livingston equalised. And what got me was when we scored the Max Aarons, who saw himself as a bit of a villain, unfairly probably. Oh, he was, but you could see it was cutting him up. It kind of destroyed him a little bit. Max Aarons getting sent off in Bruges in that game that we were horrifically mauled in by Club Bruges, the Champions League playoff match. But he's on and he scores the winner in the 94th minute. We have our Celtic moments as well. In the 94th minute of the game, it was so. I remember not cheering. I'm watching it on television. I remember not cheering because it was just like, that's the fucking least you can do. And there's bigger problems here. There's problems here that aren't going to go away just because we've scored a last minute winner against Livingston. I barely cheered it. But in the stadium, you had a combination of fans who screamed with the excitement of an injury time winner, and Max Aarons is just so relieved, probably, that he's managed to contribute something positive. He's relieved at having won a league game as well. You can see like Tav and all that probably know that bother there. They know what's coming. The manager or the head coach, Russell Martin, is off the bench with his coaching staff cheering it like we've just scored in a Champions League semi-final or something like that. And simultaneously, almost before the ball's been respotted, the crowd, because you get 3 sides at Almondvale, are singing Martin, get the fuck. Martin, get the fuck. It's like, just because we've won this game, don't think that makes us any less doubtful about you, Russell Martin. I was still up for giving him another chance at that point, and he got it at Falkirk, and he failed. I think we beat Sturm Graz in between times as well. It was awful. And it was just, I've never experienced it. Rangers score a last-minute winner, really early on in the season as well, even though it was our first league win. Not to break a little duck, I've not having won the league yet, but it was late September, and as soon as we scored the winner, there's a doubling down of the hatred against the head coach. Lest anybody in the director's box thinks that lets him away with it. That means we start liking him now. No, he's got to go. We've seen enough. He's still got to go. It was unbelievable. For Danny Röhl, I think his away form this year needs picking up. It needs to pick up for a bit of kind of psychological rest so we can trust ourselves more when we go on the road in the remainder of the season. A great home record. It's been a fantastic home record recently. I worked out that I said that we'd scored after the Hearts game. That meant we were on an average of 5 goals a game for the last 4 games. And one of them was against Queen's Park. But what the hell, go for it. Just all 7 games are played at home in 2026 so far. Beat Aberdeen 2-0. We beat Ludogorets 1-0. That was a miserable game. We just need to get a win in that group stage. And we beat Annan Athletic 5-0. So if you add it all up at Ibrox in 2026, we've scored 28 goals to 3 conceded in 7 home games. Away from home, we've only, I think, 6 games away from home so far this season. But the last 3, was it 5 games? The last 3, if you want to throw in the Porto game, we haven't won any of our last 3 away games. Our last 2 away domestic games, Hibs and Motherwell, have scored 1 goal and drew both of them, so we've dropped 4 points over those 2. We haven't won away from home since beating Aberdeen at Pittodrie 2-0 back, I think it was the 11th of January. That obviously we beat Celtic 3-1 at Parkhead on the 3rd of January, but we need to be getting some away goals. To choose my starting 11, I don't know. It's difficult. We don't know. It's difficult enough to guess a Danny Röhl team. It should be more difficult now that he's got a bigger roster, but a roster of players who are definitely vying for a first team start. But with there being injuries, how would you be supposed to? He won't tell us who the injuries are. I'm just going to have to completely guess. I wonder if he's. And I went for on Monday. The reason that the pods are so late and so overly long this week is because Monday and Tuesday off, holidays, so I went to just go for a wee drink in the West End, and I ended up going to Curlers. I know, Curlers Rest, just such a transitory feeling about it. It's just kind of transient. It feels like I suppose it is next to the underground. It's next to Byers Road, the Hillhead Underground, but it just feels like a proper train station pub. It's a weird pub, Curlers. It never lives up to its reputation, or it's got a different reputation in my head. But something, and on Monday, I try to get a drink in Glasgow on a Monday afternoon. Just got to be drinking a burger, just want to be pint, and it's desolate. One place we went into, they're actually working on it. There's no signs up like that. No, the big place in Ashton Lane that's upstairs, and up there, and there's no signs stopping you go up the stairs. Walked up there, opened the doors. They were rebuilding the place. It's like chipboard and that everywhere. It was desperate. Monday afternoon, so we ended up in Curlers because it was kind of slightly busy, and they were serving a great, fantastic burger and chips. A wee deal going on. But anyway, the point is, I went up to order the foods, and when I'm ordering the burgers, Lassie says to me, "Any allergies? Any allergies?" I was like, no. And I'm thinking, I wonder if that's what Danny Röhl's saying. Did anybody allergic to plastic? Anybody's kneecaps allergic to plastic? What he said before he's selecting the squad for this one. Not according to Danny Röhl, he says we coped fine on the plastic at Kilmarnock, so basically there are no excuses, but he whispered something about it being a factor in terms of who could start the game. I think it means it's not an excuse to, if we're going to lose the game or drop points, we can't be using the plastic surface as an excuse. But with us not knowing who the injuries are, I can't really say. So I would have taken the same starting 11 as last Sunday. I would definitely go with that again. I'll go with the 4-2-2-2 again. So I'll just guess at the injuries because of the plastic. I want us to go aerial, keep the ball in the air. So Tav coming in for Dujon Sterling, who I'm thinking has been one of the injuries. If Tav come in for Dujon Sterling, that's quite good because we've got Tav's deliveries, and also he's scored a few goals. He's scored a few crackers at Almonville down the years, has Tav. And I'll guess that handily, seeing as people were talking about him getting taken out of the team, needing a rest, that Nico Raskin's the other injury. I'll say it's him as well. So I'm going to just guess that the starting 11 is Jack Butland in goals, Tav at right back, Souttar and Fernandez as your centre halves, Romans at left back, Chukwani and Diamande as the 2 6s, Scott Olsen and Mikey Moore as the 2 10s or inverted inside forwards or whatever they're supposed to be, and have Chermiti and Nadiri. Ryan, Thomas Muller, Nadiri. Ryan, Thomas, Der Bomber, Der Nation. Muller, Nadiri. Up front, of those two up fronts, that's what I just... Same starting lineup as last week. I'm just going to guess that it's Tard coming in for Dujon Sterling and Diamandi going to come in and start instead of his mate Raskin. Score prediction. Or maybe the injury is John Souttar. Maybe he's out until June of 2027. I don't. Score prediction. This portion is definitely dedicated. This portion of the podcast is dedicated to Tom Noonan, aka Kelso, who passed away on Valentine's Day. Kelso called about this. This is John Voight and Robert De Niro in the car park. Kelso. Tooth Fairy car park scene, horrific. And this is with Kelso. Tom Noonan's character's getting introduced in Heat. He first gets mentioned in a car park as well. Kelso called about what a score he's putting out. He wants you to look at. What do I need his score for? I've got my own. He says it's clean and low 8 figures. 9 a.m. tomorrow. And it's $12.1, $12.2 million. That score is for Rangers. Again, it's a pivotal moment in the season. This another kind of seminal moment in the season. We've got to look like champions on Sunday. We've got to play like champions. We've got to sort out the away form. There's no excuses here. We've got to underscore what we did last Sunday against Hearts. We've got to keep the pressure on Celtic and Hearts, irrespective of how they got on against Falkirk tomorrow. We've got to remain the form team and show an upturn in fitness befitting our first free midweek in ages. So I think we'll get cocky, we'll look rusty rather than rested, and we'll win 2-1 again. We'll win 2-1 again, and they'll be lucky to get away with 2. We'll just take that. Nobody's good away from home. Nobody's good away from home in the top flight in Scotland now. It just doesn't happen. Might have been at the beginning of the season, maybe some good away wins. We've had Kilmarnock, Dundee winning 3-3. But it's even Motherwell get put out of the Scottish Cup at Pittodrie during the week. No, nobody's good away from home. So it's my score prediction is 2-1 to Rangers for the third time against Livingston this season, and I'll be quite happy with that. Whatever the score is, you've just got to know how to grab it. That's what he says. De Niro says to Tom Noonan. It's Neil McCauley says to Kelso, how do you get all this information? How do you know about the bank alarm system, how to switch off the bank alarm system? How are you getting all this, all the internet stuff? It's early days at internet, and he says they send information out and it's beamed out all over the fucking place. All you have to do is know how to grab it. You just know how to grab it. And whatever the score is on Sunday, Rangers, you've just got to know how to grab it. It's not clean, but it will be low 8 figures. Check out my Hearts debrief, folks. It should be appearing one side or up there somewhere, running about my head just now. Check out the debrief for the Hearts game. Put it together with this, and that's you got proper debrief and preview pods. I'll get a bit more organised from now on, and I'll talk to you on Sunday, folks. Have a great weekend.